Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange. Today I want to do a really quick round of recent reads talking about books that I've been reading via Kindle Unlimited. I have been enjoying a lot of short fiction, so I don't have tons to say about these books, but I want to share them with you. Keep in mind that these books are available on Kindle Unlimited at the time I'm recording this, but it doesn't mean they're available by the time you're watching it because there is a delay right now in my editing process. So keep that all in mind. I, of course, am not sponsored in any way by Amazon, but I've got some great books to talk about. A lot of them are horror, so let's get started. First, I read a novella called The Witching Hour Theater by Jonathan Janz, and this is a book that is about a man that goes to a theater to watch a group of horror movies. However, when the lights go out, people start to get killed off by some kind of slasher, and this story is very meta. It's the kind of story that I would recommend, of course, to fans of horror, but also to people who are cinema buffs, because there are so many great quotable moments that talk about why people watch horror or why people go to the movies, and it's just really fun. You know me, I love a good slasher story. It was fast, it was fun, and I would definitely recommend it. Next, I read a horror poetry collection that is called Dreams of Decay by Alessandro Martinez, and this is a collection of short poems that are all done in a classic rhyming style that are creepy in one way or another. I didn't find them overly scary, and because they were done in a very simplistic format where each second line rhymed with the next, I felt that the book was more targeted towards a younger audience. So I didn't personally love it. I do prefer more complex literary or lyrical writing when it comes to something more poetic. So it wasn't a 5 or 4-star read for me, but still kind of cool. The illustrations were fantastic in it, so definitely those added to the creepiness factor for sure. Next, I read a book called Cats Like Cream by Renee Miller, and this is a very short piece that is about a man who works as a real estate agent selling people homes. What they don't realize when they buy a home from him is that he has installed cameras secretly so that he can watch the women when they are naked, in the shower, etc. This is the kind of story that will appeal to people who not only read horror, but also people who read thrillers, because there really isn't a supernatural element going on. Instead, it's a story that will appeal to anyone who likes being inside the head of someone who is dark and disturbed. And there is a lot of adult subject matter in here, a lot of explicit sexual content. So not for everyone, but if you can handle it and enjoy a really dark, disturbing tale, this one is a fun one to check out, so I do recommend it as well. Next, I read a book called Jedi Summer by Boden. He is an author who has written horror, but this book I would particularly describe as a coming-of-age story. It's much lighter in tone, and there's really nothing scary or horrifying about it. Instead, this is a story that is set in the 1980s and is told from the perspective of a boy who, along with his brother, is waiting for the next Star Wars movie to come out. It is very sweet. You get to hear about their childhood, and the story is actually told from the perspective of the boy as a man reflecting back on his childhood, so you do get to see that commentary. It's very nostalgic, and I definitely recommend it to people who enjoy coming-of-age stories. Next, I read a book called A Foster Homes and Flies by Lutzke, and this is a story about a boy who wakes up one morning to find that his abusive, alcoholic mother has died in her sleep, and he is reluctant to report her death to the police because in about 6 days he is supposed to participate in a school spelling bee, and he so badly wants to participate that he decides to hold off until afterwards. And the story is basically told in the days leading up to that as he tries to deal with the situation at home, as things are getting smellier and he is trying to come to terms with that. And this story is a coming-of-age story. It's definitely darker because of the fact that it has this morbid aspect to it. I wouldn't necessarily call it horror in the traditional sense. It's creepy in a way. It's very much that quiet, macabre horror, but in a lot of ways it's more of an emotional tale. I have come to expect great writing and great characters from Lutzke, and I was not disappointed in this one. If you are someone who enjoys a coming-of-age story that is going to have a lot of emotional heart to it, I would recommend this one as well. I just am very impressed with Lutzke and will definitely be checking out more of his work. Finally, I read a short story collection called Dolls by Skye. This is a collection of 3 stories that, of course, are all about creepy dolls, which is one of my favorite topics when it comes to horror. The first story was by far my favorite. It was told from the perspective of a young girl who is living with her mother and her baby brother. You know that her father is away in the war, and he sends her a China doll in the mail. And with that doll comes instructions on how to take care of it in order for nothing bad to happen. Of course, they dismiss this as superstition, but when those rules are broken, craziness ensues. I will say that this story is hella dark and very disturbing. I loved it so much. It definitely gave me all the creepy doll feels that I wanted, so I do recommend checking this collection out for this story alone. However, the other two stories in the collection really didn't work for me. I found them to be quite forgettable, but if you get a chance to check out the collection, do it for the first story alone, which I thought was fantastic. So that is it for this quick round of recent reads. I'd love to know if you're planning on picking up any of the books I mentioned here. As well, recommend me your favorite books on Kindle Unlimited. Every few months, I renew my subscription so that I can check out a bunch of books, focusing primarily on horror. So if you have any recommendations for me, I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.